Okay, there we are. Yeah. Trey actually knows more about the race committee vote than I do, so does my dad. But yeah, every week we're going to switch off who's going to run the races, and so each of us get a chance to take the boat out and get the courses set up. And that's a little bit about what I'll help you understand today. Is a little bit about the consistency we want to get, how to use the boat, make sure that it's safe and functional. And there's been a lot of work done this year, as Gary mentioned about that. Trey, do you want to just go over the boat, what we need to be careful with?
We'll put up we've had a sheet in the past we'll put up on the website. We'll have one. We've had a sheet available on the boat. We're getting one put together here on the starting procedures with maybe a couple photographs. We're going to be moving a battery switch as well. So there'll be a couple of variations on it, but otherwise we'll put that together so it's on the boat, so whoever's driving can learn to operate it correctly.
Yeah, well, also my cell phone will be on throughout, every night that I'm here. I plan to try to make all of the races, but otherwise my dad, Robert, or Trey will be available too to make sure that that everybody's clear in how to function the boat and just the operational piece of it, because we had a couple challenges at times, but I think we're on the upside of that now. First thing I'll say as far as racing goes this year is, to start with safety. You've got to be prepared to get out on the lake. Doesn't matter if the weather looks good or it doesn't look good. And prepared is, whatever you're comfortable with. Whatever you guys are comfortable with. Life jackets or not, we don't make them mandatory. We recommend them for everybody. I would say that more often than not, most accidents when it comes to an incident being in the water are avoided if you have one on. So I would recommend everybody wear one when they're on the water. I have kids now, so I wear them more often than I used to prior to having kids. And last year in Colorado, we lost a really good sailor up in Dillon who did not have a life jacket on, and he would be alive today if he had worn that life jacket. And then just be comfortable with the conditions for yourself. We've already talked about, are we going to race next week? It looks like snow and 37 on Wednesday. Not ideal for sailing, but we'll wait to see what actually the weather turns out to be, because 48 degrees and sun is warm enough to sail in Colorado. 37 in snow on the boat, probably not. But we're going to wait till the day of or a few hours before, like we always have, to make sure that it's safe enough for people to get out on the water and sail. I passed around a couple of sheets here as far as the starting sequence and the marks. What we want to make sure of is that people are, accidents happen on boats when people are not ready for what's going to happen next. And when the wind blows harder, you got to look further out. Your boat's traveling faster, other boats are traveling faster. You got to think about where your boat's going to be in 30 seconds or a minute, because there are times when you don't have the opportunity to make a move to stay clear from somebody. So when we go through the sequence here, you're going to see 5 minutes. It's the fastest 5 minutes of my life, depending on who you have on your boat. There's a lot of questions going on. The wind will pick up at the wrong time or the right time. And then all of a sudden, people don't know which direction they're heading again. I actually had a collision with my friends Randy and Lisa a couple of years ago. Right before the start, they were on starboard, I was on port. The course was set up in a little different direction. I had people on my boat asking me questions, and all of a sudden I looked behind my sails and I was like, uh-oh, this isn't going to be good. And there was no chance to stay clear. We barely nicked the stern of my boat with the bow of his boat, but it could have been very dangerous because he's got a pulpit on the front of his boat that would have easily hit somebody in the side of the head on my boat. So you got to be paying attention out there, and that's the one thing. We've had some collisions out here that I really want to avoid this year. As far as setting up the race courses, when you head straight out of the marina here, out in the middle of the lake here, basically where I'm pointing, there's a fishing boat out here now. That's about where we set up the race committee boat most of the time. I would say 75% of the races that we hold out here, the wind is coming from the dam side or northwest, and we sail up towards the dam either to mark 3 or 4 oftentimes, sometimes up to 2, and then down to 5 and 6 and 7 down this way. So if we set the boat up out there, we can be patient and let the wind fill in. And that's the other thing I want to make sure everybody is aware of is be patient when you're race committee. You don't have to start the race right at 6:20. Take some time to let the wind fill in, especially when we have long days like we do in the beginning of the year here. As it gets closer to the end of the season, when the sun goes down earlier, it's a little bit more of a priority to get races started so we can all finish. And then secondly with that is the type of race to set. What I'm talking about there is we want to set races that are attainable to finish and possibly have a second race. So we don't want to set up courses that are super long or multiple legs, going from, let's say, 3-7, 3-7. That's about as long of a race as we'll ever need out here. And oftentimes a 3-7-3 finish works fine, or a 3-7 finish works fine. And I'm going to be on my phone with the race committee, helping them understand what course to choose and the length of it, so that we all can have a complete day of racing. We don't want to leave people out here and have races that are too long. And then as far as starting goes, one of the things every year that you need to be reminded of is keeping the starting area clear. There's think of an area about 100 yards around the starting line that you shouldn't be sailing in if it's not your start. So whoever's going to start first, try to stay, they'll be in that box positioning, moving around, checking the line and all those things. And if the wind is really light and we have other boats in that area, it can really affect people's chances to get set up or just get prepared for the race. So hang out close by, but I would say further off the line and not even at the ends of the line, because there are a lot of places to be getting prepared for the race on either side of the line there. So further back off the line, about 100 yards or so, gives everybody who is getting ready to race plenty of time to get started. And then second is watch the course board. The course board can change between races. The first fleet, A fleet, is not always going to have the same course as B fleet. There's been times where I've sailed the wrong course and watched Gary Simon sail to a different mark, and I'm like, why is he going that way? And finally we realized that we're sailing to the wrong mark. The race committee had changed the course as the wind shifted, and we went to 6 instead of 7. And, so I sailed the wrong direction for a little while. But we have a courtesy of saying the course over the radio, but you've got to check the course board before you guys cross the line or somewhere near that point, because there are some changes that happen at the last minute. Second is, man overboard. Trey was actually trying to put together an event last year to practice that. But, if there's an issue on the water, go help your competitors, go help anybody, and, the sailing can get picked up later. But if somebody gets in the water, there's a boat in distress, whoever is closest by, because we do not have a chase boat out here. We have a race committee boat, and that's not a chase boat. So we need everybody's help to pay attention to what's going on out there, because radio communication is not always perfect. So if you see something that doesn't look right, let's just make sure that we're all out there to help each other, continue to be safe and get back to the dock together. I'm just going to ask everybody, go on YouTube and watch a starting sequence before Wednesday. It's a 6-minute, 5-minute, really interesting, approach to a race. There's actually a funny one out there from like an Irish commentator about the Olympics, and he's never seen sailing before. And if you haven't watched it, it's pretty funny. He's talking about, it looks like it's a race, and he's making fun of all these people, and then the horn goes off. He's like, wait a minute, that wasn't the race just started. It's a pretty fun picture or video to watch, but it also shows you what happens prior to the race, which, as you guys all know, prior to the race is where you can win or lose an individual race there. So being prepared before you get out there makes it a lot more fun for you and your crew. And I'd encourage your crew to also go ahead and watch some of those videos and get ready and talk about what your plan is for the start, so they can be aware of where boats are coming from.
Just a quick question. Are we going to have to read this to somebody in that rare occasion that they do need to talk on the race tracing?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think anybody here would question that.
If you're talking about not making the races too long, one of the biggest someone like Bruce who takes them an hour or so to get here and everything, it's a 20-minute, 15-minute race, especially in June and July, it's not usually an issue because we always will have time to run a second race. We also need to make sure that the race is more than 20, 30 minutes. The goal is to get it in about an hour. Good. You want to address that by using something like using gates?
Right.
Shorten it if you have to at the gate.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's exactly where we're going to head here. Is picking a course, and we're running two different fleets here: a spinnaker fleet and a non-spinnaker fleet is typically what we're running right now. The spinnaker fleets like to race windward leeward, and the non-spinnaker fleets don't necessarily want to race windward leeward. So we've set up some different courses, but absolutely, Mike, if you guys want to help me and the race committee understand what's a good course for you guys, I think we're all open to that. And if you guys want to watch the wind and pick a course that fits, you know, for what you guys want to try that day, I'm all for that. And I think race committee in general, you know, you all do this once a year, so nobody's going to be an expert. So taking input from those out there, plus you can blame them too if it doesn't go well. But no, absolutely, Mike. We'll figure out what's the right course, you know, for.
We don't have a 20-minute race. That's the frustrating part.
Okay. Well, 20-minute races sometimes only because the wind's blowing.
Well, yeah.
It's better than an hour-long race where there's no wind.
Well, that's true, but if you do a second race, but when you come out here and then you do a 20-minute race, you know, for me, I live, you know, not that far away. It's not a big deal.
Sure.
If you get somebody that lives up north that comes down here, hour here, hour back for a setup for a 20-minute race, that's a little tough.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So the use of a gate is something we started last year. Good input from the club of how do we shorten a race so we don't have these races that go on forever with no wind. And what that was changing the starting line to be a gate. And so what we ended up doing was having, you know, we could go 3, 7, gate, 3, finish. Well, you could finish at the gate if the wind started to slow down or lighten up and the race was taking too long. So we'll continue to do that, and I'll be on the phone with people prior to, as well as some of the other board members here, helping people understand what's the right, you know, proper course for the day that's going to give us the best chance where everybody can have a good time with the right length, with enough wind, all that stuff. The other is a radio. Channel 68 is the channel we use out here. All keel boats need to have a radio on board. It has to be on. I really encourage everybody to have somebody on their boat who mans the radio and have that person be pretty consistent and keep the radio where they can hear it. Some people have a radio on their boat and they throw it down in the, you know, down in the beaver somewhere and they can't hear it at all. That's going to be the, you know, the only way to really communicate to everybody if there's an issue or there's a change or something like that. So you got to have a radio on board, and it's got to be charged, and it's got to be in somebody's hand that they can hear it and communicate back to the rest of the crew. We're going to get the sign-up sheet for race committee. I think it's already online. It's already up there, ready to go.
Yeah, we can do hard copy today if you want.
Yeah, and we can put one out today and get some of that stuff figured out. So everybody will sign up for, usually would be one race committee and one burger night. We're not going to hold the burgers right now, so everybody needs to get on the calendar to run the race committee. As of this point, as far as fleets go, you know, last year we had the Capri fleet, the J22 fleet, and then the PHRF fleet. We might have a Flying Scot fleet. I think we basically decided in the past that 4 or 5 boats would constitute a fleet. That doesn't mean you get your own start. J22s and Capris sail in the first start, as well as Santanas and some other boats that are flying a spinnaker, but we will score them as a fleet. And so, Ken, I don't know, it sounds like you have 5 or so that might sail.
Yeah, not necessarily start, no, I think we probably have 3.
Okay.